Watershed District Board regular meeting. It is Wednesday, May 14th. It's 9 a.m. We're in the Mounds View City Hall Council chambers. Reflect that all managers are present, along with our usual wonderful staff. And is there any change to the agenda?
Yes, President Bradley, Board of Managers staff would like to amend the agenda for a new board action item, new number 2, under that heading. We'll call it Clearwater Creek Stabilization Watershed-Based Implementation Funding.
Oh, boy.
Well,
It's this.
WBIF, yes, that was handed out at the workshop. Yep, Clearwater Creek Stabilization, WBIF.
Yeah.
anyone
that-
else have any?
Yes, I will note that.
WBIF, that works.
We are at the City of Mounds View, and Don Peterson, the Public Works Director, is likely to have some time today to engage us with a simple update on the stormwater management grant that he's received from Rice Creek.
Great.
So, as the agenda allows, and he makes himself
So
his appearance.
I will move the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that takes us then to approval of minutes.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the minutes from the April 2020, or the April 23, 2025 regular meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. All right, that takes us then to consent agenda. Patrick?
Yes, President Bradley, Board of Managers, staff have 3 applications for your consideration today. We do have one error to correct. This would be on page 22 of the packet, related to permit application number 25-022. On page 22, in the stormwater section, in the table for the biofiltration basin, the volume provided is incorrectly listed. It should actually be, instead of the 1,039 cubic feet, it should be 2,798 cubic feet. Besides that, no other changes, so happy to answer any questions.
Repeat it.
Yeah, the correct amount is 2,798 cubic feet.
Are there any questions of Patrick?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would just note that it appears we can't get any farther south in our watershed as it relates to this particular proposal.
Yes, Manager Wynant, the permit 25-022 in Falcon Heights Community Park is recently added to the district with the boundary change. So, yes.
Great.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Patrick, just a comment on the Forest Lake item. The mapping doesn't really show where old drainage branch 1, which is now the City of Forest Lakes Authority, is. I just thought it would be able to, nice to see how that flows into our system. If you do mention it does reach the system, but in the maps, that's my comment I had about it. I appreciate seeing that, so we don't forget that it's not just it's disappeared in life, it's still there and contributing. And how it connects to ours, that's always helpful. Thank you.
Appreciate the comment, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Have a motion, please.
So, Mr. Chair, I would move approval of,
Probably a conditional approval. Recommending Caprock.
Caprock. Move Caprock approval of, what is that?
Excuse me.
Permit number 25-022, 25-032, and 25-034, as outlined in the above table of contents in accordance with Rice Creek Watershed District's engineer's finding and recommendations dated May 6, 2025.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All-
Correction.
Yeah, do we
So
need to
noted.
note the correction?
With the correction, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Moving right along. takes us to the Molly's work. And there she is. Thank you, Molly.
Good morning, Mr. President, Board of Managers. For your consideration today under the consent agenda for the Water Quality Grant Program, there are 3 applications in Ramsey County, R25-03, -04, and -05. R25-03 is for a rain garden project. R25-04 is also a rain garden and upland native plant restoration project. I'll make note that this project is located on a property directly on Island Lake, so it's technically also a shoreline project as well. And then R25-05 is a shoreline stabilization and restoration project. All of these projects were discussed at length at the CAC meeting on May 7th. Mr. President, Manager Bradley was present at that meeting, and all of the members were in favor of the applications.
Are there questions of Molly? So the one that caused the most interest was the one that's taking place on 2551 West Bald Eagle. And because they are, as you all know, it's part of my neighborhood, they're going to try to use coir logs rather than riprap. And I know that we had some not great experience in one other project where they use oak logs. Same concept, the logs rot out and the plants, it gives a chance to plants. But Molly provided me with literature to look at, which I did look at, thank you for that. And I think the general consensus was this would be a reasonable, low-cost experiment to see if we can break our habits of using nothing but big stones. So with that, I also support this project.
Mr. President, just for a comment on your, we did use biologs for a number of years, and they were a failure over on Long Lake. And that's why after the failure of these, that we went more towards the riprap. Of course, that's a prior engineering firm, to point out, also noticed that that was their favorite, one of their favorite uses of it. I'm not taking any issue with you, Molly. I'm just sharing some information with my colleague.
Sure, Manager Waller, Mr. President, if I may respond. The design of coir logs is for them to deteriorate over time and native plants to grow into the logs and stabilize the shoreline in that capacity. The coir logs will be staked with long stakes, so they should be rather firm in the shoreline. We've seen some additional projects go on the landscape, one being such on Lost Lake in Washington County, also involving coir logs. And Mr. President, to speak to your example, that project was a cedar tree revetment project, which is slightly different than what we're seeing here presented, but similar concept where it's looking to stabilize the shoreline with native plants versus armoring it with stones.
The other comment I'd like to make is that, and I take some comfort in this, is this, of course, was reviewed by Ramsey County Soil and Water Division. And certainly they should have been aware that this was on the South Shore. And that's the real problem for me. It's on the South Shore, which is where do you get all the wave action? So, anyway,
Mr. Chair?
yeah.
Molly, I have a question about the one in Shoreview. When you introduced it, you said it was in Island Lake. Was there special consideration because that lake has been removed, or what? Could you say that again when you
Lake
were?
was removed?
Sure.
It was removed from the list.
Yes, Manager Waller.
Delisted.
It was, Island Lake was recently delisted last year. And this property is located directly on the lake, and the work will be done in the entire backyard and directly on the shoreline of the property. So it's technically a shoreline stabilization, but it's predominantly an upland vegetation establishment, and there will be 2 rain gardens above the high water mark on the
Great,
shoreline.
thank you.
Any other questions? We have a motion then.
Well, since they're all in Ramsey County, Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the consent agenda as outlined in the above table in accordance with Rice Creek Watershed District Outreach and Grant Technicians recommendations dated May 8th, 2025. And that's number R25-03, R25-04, and R25-5.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Molly, thank you for your work.
Thank you.
President Bradley, we
Yes.
now have open mic. Believe we might have someone here who would like to speak.
Wow. A gentleman from Northwestern University, if I remember correctly.
Good memory. Mr. President and managers, I was intending to attend your meeting semi-regularly, but fate had me schedule this one. Just wanted to inform you, if that you were not aware, we had an oil leak at the university in its maintenance building last week Monday. So I showed up first thing on Monday and found that a 200-gallon used oil tank seam had failed on the upper floor of the maintenance building. And if last Monday was the time to buy a lottery ticket, by the way, so your time has passed, because that oil flooded an area, found a seam, went downstairs, dripped on pipes, conveyed over to the other side of the building, hit on the floor, and then went down a drain. What I found out, unfortunately, being new to the job, is that drain is original to the 1918 building of that site, and it conveys directly into the lake, Lake Johanna. And so realized that there was some product that had made it into the water. As a courtesy, called here first for the watershed. So then I said, I know the duty officer needs to be contacted. They confirmed the number, got a hold of them, ended up getting on a first name basis with the MPCA emergency response, contracted immediately with West Central Environmental Consultants to come out and do cleanup work, which continues. We got most of the product gathered up in the first few hours. There is still a confinement boom out there on the lake. We hope that it passes final inspection and can be pulled today. But just wanted to make you aware of the fact that was an incident that happened, that we tried to take quick action on it. Sadly, in my past, I've dealt with oil leaks before, so I knew what to do. Everybody else is like, what do we do? And I said, well, we have to call the duty officer. And everybody went, what's a duty officer? And I said, never mind, I'll be in the office talking to them. I'll school you later and stuff like that. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention that there was an incident that did occur, but that we're taking proactive action on that. One thing I will note is that I've now found that there are 5 floor drains that are in that building that convey directly into the lake. So I've ordered them all to be plugged, but we're working on a plan to get them permanently sealed and capped and have things differently conveyed in that site. Unfortunately, our budget was approved by our Board of Trustees the week prior to the leak. So I have no money for that. So if you know of anybody that's got money sitting around to help with the capping of such pipes and things like that, please let me know. David was kind enough when I reached out to him to give me some suggestions. So we're going to be knocking on all the doors. But regardless of whether we can find additional money, we're going to do what is right and be good stewards of the environment. Now that we know that these pipes are running right into the lake, that's unacceptable to me and should be unacceptable to all rational people. So we're taking proactive steps on that. So just wanted to brief you on that and stand for any questions you might have.
I think I failed to have you state your name for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dan Coughlin. I am the Vice President of Operations and Planning for the University of Northwestern.
Thank you for your report. Any questions?
Well, appreciate the heads up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dan, what year was that building?
1918.
1918.
So, Mr. President, I just curious, does this program, your problem, have you talked to our people about the program cost share application, since it involves the lake? Shoreline?
I would be open to anything that you might suggest. I know
talked
Soil
about-
and Water may have some, they
I
do
just,
some well capping and things like that. This isn't a well, but it's definitely a
This isn't
direct
well,
conveyance
This is a
issue.
direct to the lakes, and the water quality grant program is what I'm thinking of, that we just got done with Molly. Mike, talk to the staff, see what
Okay.
they say. Maybe I'm wrong about that, you know.
Nick, do you have a-
But it doesn't hurt.
It can't hurt.
If you don't ask, you don't receive.
I'd be
That's
willing
true.
to talk with anybody and everyone at this point to make sure that we do what is right.
Nick, you want to make a comment?
Sure. Board of Managers, we did have some initial discussion internally regarding the different funding programs we have. Most of them, or all of them, do not directly address this type of situation. The burden does fall on the property owner to have their property, correctly be in alignment with the resource. So staff are bound to the criteria the board sets for its various funding options. But that's not to say we can look deeper and go from there.
Thank you for your report.
Thank you, Mr. President.
And Mr.
Mr.
Chair,
President,
oh,
yep. Yes,
Don Peterson.
President Bradley, yeah. As Marcy noted, Don Peterson has entered the room. This may be an appropriate time for
Great.
an update from them on their stormwater management grant.
Mr. Peterson, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. President, Commissioners. Just to give you an update on the Silverview project as you're looking for that grant. The project is underway. The contractor has removed quite a bit of the invasives. That's part of the project around the entire pond. And they are working on the south BMPs next to H2 Flats apartment. Those have been dug out, and then they're also doing the restoration of the two on the very south tip of the lake or the pond next to County Road H2. And they are starting the restoration project for that with the seeding and getting it ready for seeding. The other part of that, with the grant, we are also looking at putting an iron enhanced separator on the forebay. They have not started that just because of mobilization of the equipment. So project is well underway. It's going quite well. Part of that project as well is upland management restoration. They've removed a lot of other invasive trees and unwanted shrubs in that, and restoration will continue in that as well. So project is moving along. They hope to be done here soon with the restoration and get that reestablished. So I would welcome any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chair, I would just say, it literally is down the street from where we're meeting right now, and you can view it from the road. Greg and I walked around it last night, and I was amazed at how much work has been done so quickly. A question I have for you, Don, was there any excavation of the pond itself as part of this?
No, I give you a little history. Years ago, we thought we had an analysis done of the pond, and we thought that it would have to be dredged in 2025 or 2026. We hired Stantec 3 years ago, our engineering services, to look at all of our stormwater ponds. And what we found is that that pond didn't need to be dredged. It's close to where it was originally designed, but more of a water quality project. So there's some high spots in there, but because of getting equipment to those high spots would be going through wetland, we decided not to do any spot dredging. And it's just a matter of putting in those BMPs, the stormwater or the infiltration basins. What we did find through that survey is that the apartment complexes, parking lot stormwater drains go directly into the pond. So that's the reason for the two infiltration basins. We put those in with hopefully capturing quite a bit of the water coming in from the parking lot. So no dredging as a whole on the pond itself.
So then our next item, we'll be talking about those stormwater ponds And just as a reminder to the board members, Mounds View did get $100,000 from our stormwater grant to be included in the city's contribution to this project. But again, we make decisions here at the board to do several grants and projects, and I think it's always good to remind ourselves that once the decision made here, it's our partners who do the implementation. So whether, even within from where we see right now, all the work that's going on Lot A at TCAP, the TCAP site, it's just amazing to see how the watershed either permits or funds or participates in many of these items that are out there. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Don.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you for coming, and I look forward to driving by on the street and looking at what you're doing.
It is drastically different. If
It's-
you ever drove by there before, you could not see the pond. Historically, you go back and look at the pictures when it was originally built, and there was not a tree around. And of course, nature does nature what it does, and a lot of the trees and invasives came in, but now you can actually see the pond. One of the things we were hoping, and we're holding off with that, Stantec called for alum dosing within the pond. We're hoping to hold off on doing it to see if what we're doing by opening it up will help alleviate some of those other problems that we're having with the smell during the off season in the winter months. We get quite a bit of complaint of the dead vegetation gassing off, and we get complaints of that. So we're hoping that we can alleviate some of the other steps in that. So thank you very much.
Okay.
President Bradley.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is the Houston Engineering Task Order 25-10. This is a regional pond dredging support that Marcy just made note of, and David's here to speak to the item. It's in your
Yes.
packet on page 71.
David, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President, Board of Managers. Yes, continuing the conversation of pond maintenance, stormwater pond maintenance. Periodically, we reach out to our partners and ask them, how can we better serve our partners, and what do you need from us to be a better resource? One thing that has come back several times now has been helping with the stormwater pond maintenance. And so hearing that, asking a little bit more about it. For one example, Ryan Johnson from the city of Roseville. You may be familiar, Roseville has 3 different watershed districts within its boundary. And Ramsey, Washington has been running a program since 2017 for stormwater pond management that they facilitate the contract to do stormwater pond maintenance and dredging. And so I reached out to Paige over at Ramsey, Washington to kind of find out what her program looks like. I think I've probably mentioned in other meetings, there's a group of Metro Watershed District project managers that get together periodically to discuss different projects we have going on. And so I reached out to that group and said, hey, I'm going to be talking to Paige about this. Does anybody else want to contribute or have a program? I want to hear what else people are doing. And so we ended up having about 8 different watershed districts participate in the conversation. Sounds like Ramsey, Washington currently has a program. Capital Region, I think, is rolling out their program right now. And several others said, we've done things ad hoc, one by one, case by case, but we're looking to establish a program because we're also hearing this from our partners. And so, of course, I acknowledge that Rice Creek is very similar in a lot of ways, but also very different than those other watershed districts. So that's why we're asking Houston to draft a task order to dig into what would a program look like for the watershed district and how can we better respond to these asks that we have. So with that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
So yesterday, we had on surface, similar issue related to street sweeping. And I think the clear message that I walked away with was we're interested in helping them do the additional step of enhanced street sweeping, where we're not interested in getting involved in street sweeping. And I've had some discussions with our administrator that I liked what we did in Preview Lake, where we partnered with all of the cities and helped orchestrate a program which will allow Preview Lake to operate and function properly with the various cities who are contributing effluent into that system. So I'm in favor of us working in that level where we work with the other, if there are, for example, Circle Pines says, I believe, 3 different municipalities that are dropping effluent into Golden Lake, where you need some sort of orchestration to get something fixed because it's more than us. I'm not interested in us becoming street sweepers or pond cleaners. That's my view. I'll open it up for any other comments or discussion, which would lead direction to, I hope, towards what Houston ought to be doing, spending our money on, and looking at this issue.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
Yeah, so I think that has been the biggest advantage to the system that Ramsey Washington has, for instance, is that they are able to package, let's say, 12 ponds together and get a better rate per pond instead of having each city individually contract those out. Speaking with City of Roseville, they have money to spend on dredging ponds, but they need a little bit of a driver to facilitate and implement and get things going on that. And so that is how Ramsey Washington is set up. They oversee the contract. It ends up being, I think they said about a $1.5 million contract. The cities reimburse the district for everything but MOB and DMOB and seed. So the district was out about $200,000 out of that $1.5 million contract. So relatively, it was at 15% or something that the Watershed District is paying, and the rest is footed still by the cities that it is their responsibility to maintain.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to probably reiterate exactly what you said. I think where the watershed has the best influence is to be the driver of best practices for communities. Because I think it's hard to, sometimes I have issues with like this type of program or the one that we dialogued on Monday, because every community is different and every community is unique. You know, the city of Blaine has 400 stormwater ponds that we maintain on a revolving cycle. But I also know that that is a line item charge on every property's utility statement, so that the city does have the resources to do that themselves. Now, is there a space, like I said, for the district to be the best practices, you know, guidance type of entity? Yes, and I'm all for that. Now, I don't know if you need a $15,000 study to determine what that is. Again, the challenge is you have 3 counties with a myriad of unique cities that all operate their public works and their utilities and their sewer and their water differently. Some are still on septics and wells, and so it's an interesting dynamic. I would agree that I think the best practices direction is the mode of the most efficacy as far as what this body can do versus just creating more grant programs. I'm not a fan of that.
I think we're pretty much all in agreement on that at this point, it seems, or at least I think we are.
At least 3 of us are.
Yeah, at least 3 of us are for sure.
You got a consensus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. President.
John.
So, one of the things that this study is far too broad. I'm not interested in getting into the dredging, although I need a memory refreshment as to who paid for the dredging on Privy Lake there.
I don't think it was us, John.
President Bradley, Board of Managers, we haven't dredged Privy Lake, but we replaced our facility, which is the outfall. That does allow us now to draw the lake down and at a future date, consistent with the work on the MOA agreement, to dredge it at a future date would be our hope, because that would be a water quality improvement method.
So, Mr. President, one of the things about this, that I think their engineering project should do is to take an extensive look to see what the capacity of these stormwater ponds are actually, to know. Because the district has some responsibility here in finding out how much storage we have or don't have. The district has a rule that mandates these ponds.
Yes.
Yes, and I would say, no to the whole thing entirely if we didn't have such a rule and policy that mandated these ponds. But But because we do have a rule and policy mandated and about the topic the other day, we don't have a rule or mandate for that policy we're talking about on Monday, and I wouldn't vote for one either. But once you do establish that, you have some responsibility. And so I think maybe discovering what the capacity of these stormwater ponds are, what a regional pond is versus individual property owner ponds, an inventory of them, that might provide us with some background for best management practices. But I don't see developing anything much more than that at this time. So.
Dick?
Yes, President Bradley, Board of Managers, Manager Waller raises a good point in regards to defining criteria, and also Manager Robertson, and each community is uniquely different, and so here the district to support its public expenditure of the public's dollars as to who would receive money or not. Defining that criteria helps us to know how it's best serving the resource. And the municipalities are also obligated under their MS4 to have these water quality. The district sets a similar standard or a different standard depending on its examination of the resource or the watershed itself.
Pardon me.
Yes.
So, Mr. President, I just point out, this is a duplication of rules, that if we didn't have this policy and rule about stormwater ponds, well, it'd be the city's business, and we wouldn't be talking about this.
If we didn't have stormwater ponds, we'd be flooded everywhere in the whole district.
But you just heard them say it's the city's responsibility to provide them.
Well,
And that's what I'm saying, is that this is a duplication, overlap, unnecessary. But since we have a responsibility, I'd like to know what the capacity is of it. That's a totally different study here than what's being presented today.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So in this, the University of Minnesota has the Minnesota Stormwater Council.
Yep.
That has been, we are members of, and that has received a lot of support to study the multiple impacts of stormwater, whether they're on the ponds, impact in the streams and lakes, etc. So, John, I think some of those best practices are already there, and we saw on Monday that street sweeping / vacuuming was one of the many options to reduce and prevent materials getting into the stormwater ponds, and now we're talking about cleaning out those stormwater ponds that actually got that residue in it. I agree with you, we're not in the business of buying a street sweeper and sweeping the streets, or a dredger and getting the storm water ponds cleaned out. But as our role as a watershed district, coordinating those efforts, I think is something that we could easily focus on.
Yes.
And whether this request to have Houston take a look at that would focus on that coordination effort or not. I mean, I don't think, to your point, John, that we or they have to figure out what the best practices are, because that's already identified.
Yeah.
That, I'd be in favor of having the watershed in some role of assisting communities. And it may be a little financial incentive, or maybe not, but at least the coordination piece. And that was the question that I had on Monday about what did the planning of the street sweeping initiative, what did that all entail? And I don't think we have the answer to that one.
Well, Mr. President, Monday's issue was, do you want to pay for the rent of another street sweeper to go in for third? And no, that's not what we're here. What we have paid for in the past has been additional machinery to update their equipment. And that's a one-time shot deal, and they're done. As for the best management practices, yes, there's plenty of stormwater best management practices in existence already. I don't know why the district would have to coordinate with that, but the point I'm interested in is knowing, you built a pond 50 years ago. It's just as the Public Works Director a few moments ago explained to us so clearly that they had done a study of their pond, which has been around for a long time, and they didn't need a dredging to it. The fact of you knowing that capacity is important. And that's something I think the district needs to know, and our water storage issues about how much water we're actually storing. Or do we have a pond that doesn't have the capacity in it anymore? Has it lost 50% or 20% or such? That's a significant piece of information. And that's to me, and what was a regional pond, what isn't a regional pond, the different definitions. Those were important things to know, to me, so we can calculate how much capacity is actually there or not.
So, if I may, so I think that we got off track on Monday because they brought us too broad a request, and it was based on requests of the cities that wanted cost of planning, they wanted cost for equipment, and they wanted cost for staff. And if you'd brought us up, said, we're gonna study how we can help cities implement this, you probably would have gotten the proper vote. We got the same problem here.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yeah, please.
Do we have a motion on the floor? Because I know
No.
we're kind of in the discussion area of this item, so
There's
is,
no motion.
okay.
Do you want to make one?
No, I really don't. I don't want to approve the language that's in here.
Well, you got to go up or down. You
Yeah.
say yes or no.
Well, there's no motion on the floor for me to have an opinion on.
Well, then, I'll tell you what, I'll make the motion so we can have the discussion and get done with it. I'll move to approve the task order 2025-010 for Houston Engineering to estimate $15,000 for this.
I'll second it. So now we can continue our discussion.
President Bradley,
Yep.
if I might, a little bit of input, lots of good discussion in both cases. I appreciate the comment about the broadness of each of the task orders and the report on Monday, and here the task order going into a report from Houston Engineering. In both cases, it is rather broad because we're looking for initially basis and technical information that will support the board in driving towards a policy position. Generally, I'd say we can't answer to all the requests that we have for funding in such in these areas. And so what specifically, how does the board see us moving forward when our communities ask for this? Certainly, the state has cast a broad net. They are obligated as communities under their MS4 permits. The district is obligated under its statutory watershed district rules and such, and then further under its watershed management plan, but then further, each of the communities under its local water management plan is to communicate with us and how they'll achieve these mutual goals that are found both in their MS4 and also in our watershed management plan. So we're kind of bound together to work, and our plan, in fact, speaks to the communities identifying how Rice Creek might be of management assistance. And so I think that brings us to the point here. You've rightfully set up your city-county partner meetings, seeking feedback, et cetera, and they have communicated, as David noted, and previously on the street sweeping, these are two areas that we'd like you to engage us on. And again, now we're back to the task orders and the reports and that broad initial position to give you information to help us facilitate with you a policy position to move forward.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Marcy, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd ask Chris, how do you see what we talked about on the report you did on Monday informing what might be proposed here?
Manager White, members of the board, and certainly they are two different issues here, but definitely based on the feedback that I heard on Monday, I did have concerns going into this today that about this task order hitting the mark on what the board wants. And so definitely I'm open to, I'll prepare a task order for whatever scope the board would like me to prepare a task order for. We did include in this task order dialogue and discussion on determining what a regional pond is, defining that. So that is something that was included in this. Certainly, looking at capacity, that would be a much larger animal to take on, because if we're looking at capacity, we have to do surveys. And there are a lot of ponds out here, so it's something that would,
That's a big,
We don't need to.
no, I think that's a major project.
Yep.
Yeah, if I could, I mean, I guess I am still just coming back to why, I get we have rules, I get that, but I mean, I know from a city's perspective, we are hiring engineering consultants for everything. When we touch the wetlands, we're hiring somebody. When we're planning ahead of time annually for whatever cycle of stormwater pond maintenance we are in, the city is contracting someone to guide us through that process. So again, I do think although rules are set here, it behooves the city to find the means in which they meet the standard of that regulatory guidance. And I mean,
I agree
we're
with
gonna go
that.
round and round and round, so I don't know if we just need to call the question or what, because
Before we do that. before we
Yeah.
get there. So what motivated me to have an interest in this was we had a recent experience with Circle Pines. Circle Pines has Golden Lake, and they're looking at the problems of the Golden Lake, and it turns out the real problems of Golden Lake is they've got, I think, 3 municipalities, all with runoff going into that lake, all of providing sediment. So when it comes time to fix that lake, all 3 cities ought to be involved in fixing that lake. And who's in the best position to help them get together and resolve that conflict other than us? And I use Preby Lake as my guiding example of where we had multiple cities involved in a problem, each with an interest and an impact on it, and trying to, it took us, what, 2 years?
Yes, it did.
It was not easy. 5.
I would just say,
Whatever. So that's all.
personally, I don't have a problem with the scope of the study here, as long, I mean, I agree, we can't get into looking at the volume of all of them without a major, that is a major project, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not an engineer, but it seems like it'd be way out of it. But I don't have a problem with us understanding this and having some kind of understanding from our engineer, just so we understand it. So
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that, but I do agree with Manager Robertson that it should be on the cities to,
President Bradley,
Yes.
if I might, and specific to the volume, just for staff and consultant better understanding, I would say, you know, with the task order and the resultant report and any potential future district approach to facilitating maintenance, volume may be something that you ask the city to bring forth. What was the original volume? What is its current condition before we engage you further in the deal? So here again, what criteria, what is a better understanding the district needs to have in order to engage with its municipalities for their success?
Yeah, the hiccup for me was the prioritizing financial assistance.
So, Mr. Chair, I see that the deliverables in this task order are policy and program development memorandum, which I would assume would also include some reference to what other watersheds are doing with their program. Regional pond dredging support memorandum, does it make sense or not? And then presentation at 2 board workshops to further discuss this.
So would you support amending the staff recommendation to read essentially, staff recommends the Board of Management approve the task order of Houston Engineering, investigate policy and program development memorandum, regional pond, et cetera, incorporating that into the motion so that we've got a little better guidance than a broad direction to prioritize technical and financial assistance.
Mr. Chair, if I might, I think this is sometimes the challenge when things get put into a packet without it being workshopped. Because I think this conversation that we're having right now going on 15, 20 minutes, this is a workshop conversation. And so I actually would take the recommendation of Manager Wynant and move this to a workshop. I would literally table it
Okay.
and move it to a workshop. Now, I know there's a current motion on the floor, but that would be my suggestion, because this really isn't the place for us to dialogue this. It would be helpful to at least have maybe some program data from the other watersheds, instead of saying they have programs. Okay, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. Like I said, I know what the obligation of the city of Blaine is, and it's ginormous just due to the nature of our ponding system. But I mean, I know John has his hand up, probably some breaking Robert's Rules of Order, but, I mean,
Did you make
I
a
would have
motion
no
to table?
problem
we
with
got
that at all.
John, sure.
well, there's
Going to a
I
workshop.
don't think I can
No, I think
motion
we-
over the
we can-
current
we can
motion
vote on this.
unless John says, yes, you can, Jess.
That's why I'm intervening.
Wonderful.
Manager. Actually, a motion to table is an intervening motion. It takes precedence. It has to be resolved before the matter currently under consideration can move forward.
Okay.
Well, on that very positive note, Attorney Quill, I will make a motion to table this item and move it to a very near future workshop, because I do think it merits a broader conversation.
I would
That's not
second
appropriate
that.
for a board meeting.
All right. Any further discussion on that motion?
There's no discussion on it.
All in discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. It's not debatable.
There you go. Opposed?
Sorry.
Aye.
I just didn't want it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. We'll see you back at a workshop.
That makes sense.
That makes perfect sense to me.
President Bradley.
Yeah.
I know.
Next item on the agenda is the
Week.
amended agenda item of the Clearwater
I
Creek
agree with you.
Stabilization Watershed-Based Implementation Funding. And we have Will here to
Hi,
present.
Will, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, President Bradley, Board of Managers. As Nick noted, I have an overview for you for the WBIF program. This year, Bowser made a total of $448,016 available allocated to our area. District staff worked with Bowser to facilitate those meetings with the convening committee, which is composed of reps from the district, Anoka SWCD, Washington County Conservation District, Ramsey SWCD, and then the cities of New Brighton and Mounds View. The convening committee met 4 times. The first 3 were during summer of 2024 on May 14th, June 20th, and August 1st. At the end of that August 1st meeting, there were a total of 6 projects approved by the committee to submit to Bowser from City of Lino Lakes, Rice Creek Watershed District, Ramsey County SWCD, and then 3 projects from Washington County Conservation District. At the end of that August 1st meeting, it was noted that there was still approximately $53,000 left in the grant budget. So the committee at that time decided that we would reconvene at a later date to see if any new proposals were to come forward. We met on March 25th of this year, where a 4th Washington County Conservation District project was approved by the committee to submit to Bowser for funding. So as of that March 25th meeting, the following projects were approved. City of Lino Lakes received is approved for $52,650 for plans and specs for Shenandoah Park. Rice Creek was approved to apply for $108,900 for concept plans for JD3 Clearwater Creek. Ramsey County SWCD, $100,000 for Island Lake shoreline restoration. And then the 4 Washington County Conservation District projects are $48,000 for Lost Lake shoreline restoration and a bioretention pond, $10,000 for a soil health implementation program, $75,000 for water quality improvements at Ty Schmitz Park, and then $53,466 for isolator roofs to be installed at Matamidi Avenue. So Bowser has offered the grant to the district for that $108,900 for the JD3 Clearwater Creek project. Again, this would just be funds for the creation of design plans for that project. No construction would be proposed at this time. As such, staff is asking the board for authorization to draft and submit that work plan, and for the board to authorize the district administrator to execute that grant agreement between the district and Bowser upon Bowser's approval of that work plan. So that is what I have for you today, and I am happy to take any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would go ahead and move to direct staff to prepare those work plans to submit to Bowser for approval and authorize the administrator to execute the grant agreement upon Bowser approval of the work plan, including any modifications to the plan as required by Bowser.
Second.
Just seconded by Manager Waller. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Oh, go.
I just point out, these funds come from the Clean Water Council.
Yay, council. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice work, by the way.
Thanks.
President Bradley, next on the agenda is the check register.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the check registered dated May 14th, 2025 in the amount of $157,459.64, prepared by Redpath and Company. And I would also point out, based on the discussion we had on Monday about surety, you will see that there are 3 returned security deposits, one from 2017, one from 2000, and one from 2023.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Next on the agenda, now under the discussion and information items, first item is Nook County Ditch 102232. This is a maintenance work update from Tom Schmidt with us.
Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. President, Nick, Board of Managers. Yes, the purpose of my being here today is just to give you an update or to clarify the expenditure of money that was noted and approved by the board president under the delegated authority, just to be clear that for you to see the expenditure and that we've retained Ryback companies to complete the needed necessary work prior to West Pine Street lowering. And hopefully we'll be starting that work soon. One section was already mown. You drive down 4th Avenue and look at branch 4 of 102232, see the vegetation management we already did in preparation for a different approved, delegated approval to dredge that branch out. That's the branch that Mr. Stoll lives upon. So it's just really just to give you an update on continue to make progress on these 102232.
Let me just give a little background. When I saw the request for payment to Ryback Incorporated, I checked to make sure that there was no conflict of interest. He will not be working on the part of the ditch directly. It's not his, on his land. And he has the special equipment needed, the long arm. And Mr. Kolb assured me there was no conflict or problem, so I agreed to the contract.
I guess that's it, unless you have questions.
Any questions?
Mr. President, Tom, this map that you put out with the different colors and sections and divisions of it's one of the best maps I've ever seen of this 1022 area. Thank you. I like maps.
Yeah, that's
It's wonderful.
that one's definitely helpful.
But make sure you put which side's north and south on it. So. Or which is in stream or downstream. You know.
How about that?
Some people get confused.
Yes, I did. Not a problem.
Thank you for clarifying the conflict of interest.
Yeah.
President Bradley, Board of Managers, the next item on the agenda is the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency grant. for the Jones Lake project. David's here to present on that item.
Hello, thank you again. As you may be familiar, we are seeking a variety of funding sources to implement the Jones Lake project in New Brighton. One of those avenues has been the MPCA implementation grants for stormwater resilience. This grant had a maximum request of $5 million, and of course we requested $5 million for the $7.8 million project. I believe last week they got back to us and said, we are willing to offer you a partial award of $1.17 million. Can you make it work? And so, of course, we talked internally and figured out, is there a way that we can phase this project and still accept this money, move part of it forward, and once we get another windfall of money, continue the project. And so we've talked about a couple of options with that. We can go into that if you'd like, but otherwise, I guess that's what we are looking for consensus for today, is to go ahead and amend our ask from the 5 million to accept the 1.17 or so. And we need to get back to the MPCA by the end of next week, I believe. So that's why it's a little bit pressing right now.
I would agree.
Any questions?
And actually, it's Friday, not next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Surprise.
There you go.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do
Just
it.
put them on a time crunch,
Have
Marcy.
it.
I would also say, Mr. Chair, that there is some money in the bonding package for this project, if indeed there is a bonding
Bill.
bill.
Adorable.
Yeah, it is.
Adorable. I would also concur, and I think sometimes it's not uncommon for projects that are of a large scale to have to phase them out. I mean, I don't think it would be reasonable on any of our behalves to say no to $1.1 million.
No.
So I think that if we can find a way to phase it and still objectively meet the goals that we have for the project overall, super great idea. And thank you for
bet.
pursuing grants to begin with. That's great.
I'll mention that there is a required match of 10% for this still, and so that would be the 117,000 or so that would probably be coming out of the levy.
And it's in the budget.
It's in the budget.
Yep.
So I concur.
I concur.
Yep. Is this requiring any action by us?
No,
No,
it
just a
requires you to
consensus.
say, make it so.
Make it so.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
President Bradley, engineer update and timeline.
Mr. Onis, you have anything you want to add?
No, not specifically regarding this engineer's report, but certainly can address any questions you might have. I'll just also note that we're already getting correspondence on drainage work group. They're intending to start meeting again come June, so I don't believe I'll be able to make the June drainage work group meeting, but I will probably send somebody in my stead from Houston to monitor what's going on, see what kind of topics they're pursuing.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
And Chris, who covers your staff expense for time on the drainage work group?
That is borne out of Houston Engineering's own dollars. We're doing that on our own nickel.
Okay, thank you.
Good job.
It generates enough funds on its own.
Yeah.
Administrator updates.
Yes.
Generosity.
President Bradley, Board of Managers, yes, our consultants, both Houston Engineering as well as Rinke Noonan, are well engaged in their fields of expertise. As far as my updates, I'll note that the Lake Joanna outlet structure, it's a district facility in Arden Hills, is a subject of concern. Houston has been to the site and provided a technical review of that structure. The safety of the structure is in question at this time and likely will need to be replaced. We have been in communication with Ramsey County in regards to the structure. There are likely some temporary fixes that might best be put in place ahead of its replacement. I would be looking at a future task order there, and Chris and Tom probably have other information if you do have questions. Beyond that, I'll just note again, the Columbus had scheduled a meeting to discuss ACD 102232, and I've made myself available. We'll see when they schedule that meeting.
Very good. Okay, Manager Waller.
Thank you, Mr. President. So on Wednesday, last week, I attended the Washington County Consortium meeting. It was about biochar. Matt Koshin was also there. Apparently, there's a lot of wood around. Ash borer is part of it. 550,000 tons a year right now that they have nowhere to go. NSP isn't going to burn it anymore. So there's talking about how to turn it into this biochar, which would be a carbon, and put it into properties, land, and such. Washington County is, at the moment, has a facility that will take the logs for free of ash trees, for example, or any of the, and but will not. They charge you for the brush. So they're doing a study at Washington County to decide if they want to actually get into the biochar business as a commercial operation. We'll see what happens there. It could be used for water quality issues. One of the things it could be done for. You could put it in those little round, long
Erosion control logs.
oh, yeah. You put it around the
That type of
sewers.
thing?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And it can be used for that. The other items I wanted to talk about was White Bear Lake. I know that's a subject that's dear to your heart, as it is mine.
Oh, boy.
It's going down again, isn't it?
I didn't bring snacks, Manager Waller, so
Well, order out.
Uber
Call
Eats.
Jimmy John or whoever it is. It's come to my attention that White Bear Lake has on the Met Council's items again. It's been some years since they were on there. They have kind of a $2 million budget to do studies on it. There's suggestions that the money seems to be no object in how to get water into there. One of them is they're doing a study of all the stormwater ponds that are around the lake within a 2-mile area to see if they could pump that water from the stormwater ponds into the lake.
This is the city which replumbed the city so all the water goes to ditch 11.
Yeah, so, anyways, we, another suggestion I've heard was to reverse the old St. Paul Water Authority piping to bring water from Centerville, Peltier, above, all the way into Otter and back and have a cleansing.
Okay.
So, you know, the suggestion a few years ago, which is quite a few years ago now, probably 10 maybe, to use ditch number 1 in Ramsey County and Schoonman Marsh or over the dam out of Pip. Those aren't so far-fetched, I guess. So I just wanted to point that out that we haven't heard anything about this at our level, but there are some meetings, and I understand the district does have a representative there. And then the final thing I wanted to talk about, so that you don't need
I'm just giving you a hard time, Mr. Waller.
I appreciate the attention.
Mr. John.
I appreciate the attention. I received this, which I think you had as emails as a reply to the resolution issues. And the first one, it said this was a board decision to make about the petition process, and I agree with them. The board can make a decision on that. The other ones got into questions about the 25-year exemption rule, which basically said no action is recommended at this time. That's not what was asked. What was asked was for language to have the 25-year rule modified. I didn't ask for an opinion from the staff as to what it was. Forfeiture of wetland banks and such, again, we're asking for language, not the opinion again. It gets into this. This would require significant changes at the state. Yes, that's true. That's what it is. Potentially new legislation. Again, not there. Elimination of wetland banking, a highly complex, unlikely prospect. That's another opinion, not the language of how to get this done, because if you don't ask, it doesn't go anywhere. All of these are saying this is too hard, I don't want to touch it. So I did bring a visual aid today. Upside down. I have it upside down. Oh, I'm sorry. Here we go. And I wanted to point out that oftentimes, when I got these back, this is what it reminded me was that they're not looking out for the resource. You know, our mission statement says resource. It doesn't say natural resources. We're not limited, so ditches are our resource systems. And then when the public waters, wetlands interfere with or prevent the authorized functioning of the public drainage system, the state shall provide for the necessary work to allow for the proper use and maintenance of the drainage system while still preserving the public waters, wetlands.
Yep.
And this is one of the things that I asked for this language because these items like the 25-year rule, wetland banking mitigation, prevent a practical use of this rule. And by the way, I looked it up the other day. It's still on the books. They haven't eliminated it
You
yet.
can only read the last 10 words.
So you only need the last 10 words?
They only read the last 10.
Yes. Forgive me. But
That is
anyways, I think it's important
That's a very important board right there.
to realize that this is what a lot of our problem is how do we balance this out? And you have these other rules, statutes. And by the way, this is the G law. It's not our usual B, D, or E. So that cause this rule to be so expensive, that it's impractical to use anymore. And that's what happens. For example, I know one instance where the inlets are at an elevation that is 2.5 feet below the outlet to the downstream, so that the value of it is totally lost. In other words, it isn't providing for the maintenance of the system that still preserves the public wetlands and provides for the necessary drainage. So I was disappointed when I read this, and that's what my comments are here. I'll now yield the floor to you.
I like a good visual aid, Mr. John, so.
Mr. Wynant, your turn.
Yes. I'd like to talk about our scheduling and the workshop, since we put some things into the workshop as of today. First of all,
There's another.
I found Monday's workshop was very difficult to track with the comments that were being added from behind us.
And I
So-
thank Manager Robertson for her intervention.
Yes, so somehow we need to get a handle on that one, because that's very disruptive. The second is, it seems like at the end of the workshop, we still have things on the agenda and we're kind of closing up. And I recognize everybody has their own schedules that are going on, but if we're going to continue to, if we want to have robust discussion about topics at the workshop, perhaps we need to have start at 8 o'clock or reschedule a little bit, because the rushing at the end doesn't do us any good. So I'm concerned about scheduling, and also, I block my Wednesday morning for a board meeting, and we've been, getting out earlier there. So does workshop continue on Wednesday? How do we do this where we get full participation for the time that's allowed? Another piece on this one too is some of us are coming to the end of our term, and to recruit other board members, we should probably be clear about what the commitment is, should people want to seek a role on this board.
Anybody who wanted to be on this board needs to be committed.
Yeah,
There you
needs a
go.
mental health check.
Yes.
Anything further?
Oh, committed, got it.
Anything further?
Over to Anoka, the hospital.
Yeah.
Manager Wagaman.
That's it.
I have two things. One, the first is, as per your deal, I will say before I left the board workshop, I asked the president if the meeting was over, and he said, yes, it is. So I didn't leave till the meeting was over, officially over. But the second thing is, I will be attending the same meeting that Nick was speaking about at Columbus.
Good.
Oh, good.
That's it.
Manager Robertson.
Yeah, not an update, so to speak, but I did want to thank Tom. We have an ongoing issue with a resident in Blaine regarding drainage issues on his property, and I know I've reached out to Tom multiple times. As a Hail Mary, it's not often that my worlds collide, but in this instance, the Rice Creek Watershed and the City of Blaine's world have collided, and I know Tom spent a lot of time with the resident trying to address historical issues and drainage and how it relates to 5362, if at all it does. So I really just wanted to thank Tom for taking the time to do that, because I am not a drainage expert. I know I've said that many times here, and so sometimes when we try to navigate situations like that with residents, I don't really think he buys what I'm selling. So it really helps that you were able to step in and give them like an hour plus of your time. So I very, very much appreciate that. So thank you. On the workshop matter, I don't know what the perfect formula is, Marcy, and I don't know if your comment is a shot across the bow at me or not. I'm gonna assume it isn't, but it's difficult. I know.
It's just to get organized.
But I don't know that there's a perfect formula, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the right ingredients are. It sometimes just baffles me that we can't get through 4 items in 2.5 hours. If I was leaving meetings 45 minutes in, yeah, you have a problem with Manager Robertson. But I mean, if we're 2.5 hours in and we haven't gotten through 4 items, that sounds like an us problem more so than a scheduling matter. I guarantee even if you move the meeting to 6:45 a.m., we'd find a way to stay there past 11:30. I guarantee it. So I think that's more a byproduct of our work and discussion than it is a matter of schedules. I am not a retired person. I wish I was.
Right.
And I have about 50 million other responsibilities. But when I am present, I try to be as present as I possibly can and give as much as I can in the moment. I do also set aside, Wednesdays, really, just to be watershed days. I don't know if taking on a workshop at the end of this meeting is the right answer or not. I really don't. I think it's really just a time management issue more so than a calendar issue. But I don't know. That's just my 2 cents in my update. But again, props to Tom. I appreciate you spending that much time with the resident, especially one that you've already talked to 80 bazillion times. So thank you.
And Mr. Chair, just as a follow-up, I know that we have multiple schedules and everybody has responsibilities. But to the point of today, if we've all traditionally blocked off till noon for this board meeting and we got through our business, great.
Well,
Maybe it's
so let me be blunt, if I could. One of the reasons we had the agenda item we've now put off to a workshop was because trying to balance the schedules between the workshops and this one, and knowing that this meeting was not going to run long, we had time to spend on that item, and obviously did not anticipate it being. We didn't know what was going to happen on Monday before we scheduled this thing. So it got scheduled on this with my consent because I was trying to balance the workload between the two. And I will continue to try to, Nick is of course leads it, I just get to say okay or not. But I take it under advisement. And in terms of managing disruptive people, I think I appreciate the idea that I'm not alone when I'm trying to shut things down.
You're not, and they sit like 4 feet behind me, so it's hard. And I appreciate that people want to be engaged and show up to public meetings. That's why we publish them. But it is very difficult to try to navigate and hear what everyone's saying. And I should have addressed him directly and in a more quiet setting
It was
than
more
in a
effective
whole.
the way you did it.
Yeah, well,
There you go. So, motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.